Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, worshippers of all ages, welcome to YouTube. My name is SeaRaptor, and today we're bringing you a first look at Tier VII Premium German cruiser München. München has recently come to the game into the live client 9.6 for super testing, which means, of course, we are allowed now to show you the ship in port, look at the stats, look at the values, the armor scheme, but of course I'm not yet allowed to show you any kind of gameplay or how the ship performs or anything like that. Sorry, them's the rules. But let's take a look around and see what we can divine just from kind of looking over the vital statistics of the ship. Now, there are only 3 tech tree light cruisers at Tier 7, right? That's HMS Fiji, USS Helena, and Skurs over in the Russian tech tree. However, there's a very crowded field of premium light cruisers at Tier 7. So München has some pretty stiff competition. So we're gonna be trying to frame the conversation that way. How does she stack up to Atlanta and Belfast and Abruzzi and some of these other ships, right? So let's start at the very beginning. Let's look at the survivability. Hit points here, 30,200 is on the low side, right? This puts her ahead of Flint and Atlanta, but basically behind everyone else. This is not shocking for a light cruiser. I'm not surprised to see this. She does have a little bit of torpedo protection here. You see here 10%. That's not best in tier, but it's certainly better than the norm, which is 0. Most light cruisers in this tier have 0 torpedo protection. So the München has a little bit. That's worth something. Armor layout. So you see here, there's not a whole lot to crow about. I mean, this is still very much a light cruiser, right? She's got a 16mm bow. The extremities here, of course, basically able to be overmatched by pretty much every battleship in her matchmaking spread. That's typical for a light cruiser. Most light cruisers in this range have 13 or 16mm bows. She does have a 50mm belt armor here. This is bad, right? Like, there's Tier 5 cruisers in the game with more belt armor than this. However, I'm going to caveat that a little bit because, as you probably have guessed, she does have the ubiquitous German turtleback. Yep, you see it here, that sloped turtleback plate that kind of extends over her machinery spaces. Now, I want to caveat even that with something else. Something that's very odd you don't normally see. She's got this bulge, right? This bulge that sticks up in her turtleback. That's very odd. I consider this to be a kind of a pretty serious vulnerability, and I'll show you why. Let me see if I can give you an angle here. So you see here, here's the belt. The belt terminates here at this line as you run across the hull. The top of the citadel, right there, right? And then up above that, you've got this 20mm kind of, just regular thwart ships casemate armor kind of thing, right? If I turn that off, you can see then this little citadel bulge amidships sticks up even above the belt armor. So if you have a battleship that drops shells, kind of in the right angle, he'll skip the belt, he'll pass the belt armor, and just go right into the citadel on this angle plate. I don't know. To me, like, an already vulnerable ship has like an added vulnerability here, which is going to feel probably pretty awful when you play her. She's going to eat damage from basically anything that shoots at her. So yeah, don't get shot at. That's kind of the best advice you're gonna get there. Now, how likely is that? Well, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked. It turns out that München is the stealthiest Tier 7 cruiser in the game. You see there at a full stealth rig, built out all the way 9.4 kilometers surface detection. That's pretty noteworthy. All right, she's better than Belfast. She's better than Atlanta. Now, the flip side of that is she comes with a lot of speed. You see here, her base speed is 36 knots. You're seeing 37.8 because I've got her rigged with a Sierra Mike flag right now. But this is best in tier. Only Abruzzi and Miyoko and Skurs come close, topping out at 35 and change, depending on which ship you're talking about. Every other Tier 7 cruiser in the game is 32 or 33 knots, in that range. So to me, this is really significant. You have low stealth and high speed. To me, that really starts to define this ship as basically a forward-playing, active destroyer hunter kind of role, right? And when you pair that with the amazing German hydro, right, which we know is a national flavor for them, the German hydroacoustic search is a little better than everybody else's. That just kind of starts building this little repertoire. You can kind of get a sense of what the role of this ship is going to be. Her turning circle, rudder shift, and her overall length leave me with the impression that this ship will probably handle a little bit like, or at least close to, similarly to Tier VII Premium Italian Duca degli Abruzzi, which to me is a huge thumbs up, because Abruzzi is probably the best handling Tier VII cruiser in the game. So if this ship handles even 90% that good, she's going to drive nice. That's going to be nice. Main battery wise, this is where you really have to kind of spend a little time. So bear with me for a minute. München's main battery is very unique, and it's clearly the driving factor behind kind of what Wargaming to design this ship. I've never seen this ship design anywhere in the Bundesarchiv looking around that I've done. But apparently the design in the Bundesarchiv exists plans for a 150 millimeter auto-loading gun, and that's what we're looking at here on München. These are double-barreled turrets, but these guns are auto-loaders, just like you would see on Tier 10 Russian Alexander Nevsky or Tier 10 American Des Moines, right? These turrets aren't manned. The guns reload by machinery only, okay? Now, that's one thing. That's one of the reasons you see her reload speed there, 4.8 seconds, right? That's better than even Tier 6's Nuremberg, which is 6.0 seconds on what amounts to the same gun. But even then, it's not quite the same gun, okay? The Nuremberg guns are 60 calibers long. These guns are 55 calibers long. So, as you would expect, that translates into a lower shell velocity. You see there 875 meters shell velocity versus 960 meters per second for Nuremberg. Now, that doesn't translate into less range. Both ships basically 16.5 kilometers, okay? But slower shells, same range. Doesn't that mean that these shells will take even longer than Nuremberg shells to reach their targets? Well, maybe, right? And here's where you have to start digging even deeper. These aren't the same shells as Nuremberg. This is a completely different shell, okay? And you can't really get the shell statistics other than the damage. You see there the damage and the velocity. Like, that's all the game interface is going to tell you. So I got curious. I popped over to Game Models 3D, which is a third-party site that data mines upcoming patches and pulls out all of the back-end values, the underlying mechanics behind that define a lot of the performance characteristics of the game that the in-game interface doesn't show you. Things like flood chance on torpedoes, just to cherry pick a personal example that's rubbed me the wrong way for years, okay? A couple of these characteristics include the drag coefficients on the shells. Like, every shell in the game has a different air drag coefficient, how much resistance that shell absorbs from simply moving through the air. And in München's case, these shells that she's firing have a lower drag coefficient than those on Nuremberg. So what that means is that despite the lower shell velocity, they have a lower drag value. They might actually perform almost identical to Nuremberg shells, which, if you're used to playing the German light cruisers, Königsberg and Nuremberg at Tier 5 and 6, is going to feel very comfortable. But reality is we just don't know. Like, I have no way to know if these shells are, if the guns are going to perform the same or similar until I actually get in the game and fire them, or even better, go into a training room and do like a side-by-side comparison. But the reality is that there's more going on here than just the shell velocities and the exit velocities and the barrel caliber. Like, there's a lot going on here. There's several different variables at play, and we won't really be able to tell how these guns are going to perform until we can actually take her out and show you guys and fire them and show you on a video or a stream or something like that. And right now, we can't do that. So, sorry. But this is intriguing, right? Like, I really want to play this ship. I'm having to sit on my hands to not play this ship. Torpedoes. If you played a German cruiser, you know the tale of the tape here, right? These are 6-kilometer torpedoes with 13,500 alpha damage. The key to remember here is you have only a single quad launcher on each side of the ship, just like Tier 9's Rune. This gives her a lot less torpedo power than you might be used to. Most German cruisers in this matchmaking tier have a pair of triple launchers on each side versus just the single quad mount. Now, one thing that's noteworthy, you see these are better protected. A lot of the German cruisers put their torpedo launchers right up on the deck in the weather where they can get hit by shells or incoming HE fire or whatever. These, of course, you see them, they're tucked under the deck a little bit. So, okay, that's nice. They should be better protected. Flip side of that is usually when you see a torpedo launcher that's kind of tucked under the deck like this, it has worse firing angles. One of the advantages of having the German torpedoes out on the deck in the weather is that they have fabulous firing angles. You can almost do like a bow run at somebody and still get torpedoes off. Doesn't look like you're going to be able to do that with München. Again, we don't really know. We'll have to check the torpedo angles once we get into a game. But at least they're here, and they're still solid and very, very usable. Anti-aircraft defenses. There's not a whole lot of good to write about here. München's AA is well below par for Tier 7. This outer ring DPS is just bad, just straight up bad. And she only puts up a single burst of flak. And to top all of that off, she has no mid-range aura whatsoever. Now, her short-range aura, made up of these 30mm quad mounts, it's got a decent amount of punch to it and a little more range than you might expect. Typical short-range aura in the new AA system is about 2 to 2.5 kilometers. These reach all the way out to 3 kilometers. So that's nice, but it's not going to save you. Like it's not going to stop a carrier from slapping you. It's just the way it is. She does get access to defensive fire. We'll talk about that in a minute. But with baseline values this bad, I wouldn't equip it. If you're looking for anti-aircraft firepower at Tier 7, look somewhere else, right? To me, I find this a little disappointing. One of the things I like about the German cruisers is how well-rounded they are. Tier 7's York, for example, in the tech tree at this same tier, has pretty decent AA power. But München can't say that. Consumables. So we talked about it earlier. She's 2 slots here. You get defensive fire or hydroacoustic search in this slot. To me, this is a no-brainer. You're going to take hydro. I mean, the AA values don't warrant the defensive fire, and plus you're getting, the really, really, really good German hydro at this tier. It's got longer range. It's long duration. And this is really what the ship is here for, right? Look at the stealth. Look at the guns. Look at the reload speed. This ship is built to crush lighter enemy units, light destroyers, light cruisers, possibly even submarines. It doesn't look like she has depth charges, but we've got to start factoring those things in when we start talking about light cruisers and destroyers these days. And so, to me, the Hydra's the pick here. Like, you're going to take Hydra. That's the thing. Now, the catapult fighter, you might roll your eyes at, but at the same time, we talked earlier this week when we looked at Tier 6 Premium German carrier Erich Lowenhart about how catapult fighters are really detrimental to certain carriers in her matchmaking spread, notably Lowenhart, like we talked about, and of course at the other end you have Tier VIII American Premium USS Saipan. So while the catapult fighter is not going to stop a carrier from striking you, probably, it's nice to have. This is never a bad thing, and just take advantage of it. And don't forget to use it when you need to. So yeah, that's kind of the whole package. It's to me, it's really hard to get a read on this ship without playing her. It's very clear to me when you look at the whole thing. She's built for a forward destroyer assassin kind of role with the hydro, the rate of fire, the way the guns work, etc., her stealth, etc., etc. If she handles as well as she looks like she will, that's going to be really, really, really nice. And she might even end up being a better destroyer hunter than Atlanta, even without radar. But until we can put the ship on the board, play around with it, and see, I don't know. I can only hold out hope. I'm a German cruiser fanboy. I want to like this ship. I'm desperate to try her out, but I simply won't play a ship that I'm not allowed to share my opinion of. And right now, we're not allowed to play München, or we're not allowed to tell anybody what we think of München if we do run her into a game and play her. So that's the way it is. Anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed that one. Have a great weekend. Be safe out there. Wash your hands, and I'll catch you next time.